LC500 exhaust controller kit. We have 3 items in here: the wiring harness, our control, and our remote. I'll show you how to install each of these. So we have 2 tools we'll need: a 10mm socket and a flathead screwdriver. We will need to get into the trunk right around here, so we'll need to remove a couple of bolts, obviously this carpet, and that's about it. So let's start on that. Let's remove our carpet. Remove our load floor. Okay, so under each of these hooks is a bolt that we want to get to. So to do that, you get your flathead right next to the hook and just pop this up. It should come up very easily. If it doesn't, then you are doing something wrong. So under there is our 10mm. So we'll just remove that. Comes up pretty easy. You can do the rest by hand, or if you have a driver, that's easier. So now that we have that bolt out, all we have to do is lift this out, store it somewhere safe, and we will put these all back in at the end. It's the same for these ones. They're just situated opposite. Make sure you put your screwdriver in on the hook side. Okay, now we have both of these hooks out of the way. There's one more hook to remove. It is on the right side, and it's this one right here. This one can stay in there. It's not going to get in our way. Okay, now that we have the last hook out of the way, we can lift this panel off. It just pops in with a little tab right here. It pulls out very easily. Just make sure you pull it out straight up. And we have the same situation with this panel as well. Same fastening mechanism as the one that was on top of it. Just pull at this corner here, and then run your fingers back and pull at that corner there. This one is a little bit beefier there, so that's why it takes a little bit more effort. This is the clip over here. It's fairly easy to pull. So now we just want to remove this panel here, set that aside as well, and now we have access to our foam insert here. So this is fairly easy to remove as well. These areas are a little bit delicate at the top, so when we're pulling it out, we want to kind of pull from here. So it helps, I think, to put a little bit of pressure backwards while you're pulling this up, and there we go. It just slides right out. Okay, now we have full access to the areas that we need. So the plugs that we want to get access to are down in the corner of our floor here. They are a little bit hard to see, but they are both blue, and they're the furthest two back in that corner. So you need some nimble hands. Okay, we want access to those two blue plugs right in the corner there. They're the only two blue plugs you can see. The closest one is the easiest to remove, obviously, and the furthest one takes a little bit of dexterity. So what we can do is use our flathead screwdriver to just poke in the little tab and pry out that plug. I will show you that once it's out. So we can just reach in, push the tab in with your thumb, and wiggle it out. They are in there firmly. You will not damage them by putting a little bit of extra force into it. This is the harness that is supplied with the kit. The plugs that we are undoing down there are these same plugs, and they're oriented in there like this. So what we want to do is press here and wiggle the plug out. What you can also do on the furthest one, if you can't reach with your hands, is put your flathead in here and then pry it out like that. So I will be doing that on this plug here. I need a light. Now once you have the plug a little bit of the way out, you actually do not need to keep pulling on the tab. And there we go. So now both of these plugs are free, and now we can install our harness. Here is our harness. These are the plugs that we're going to be working with in this next step. This side of the plug goes into these plugs that we just removed, and the other side will be plugged into the module, into each module. So it does not necessarily matter which side you plug in, although you'll have an easier time plugging this side into the farthest back module and corresponding plug. So I also find it easier to plug these two in first. So I'll start with the furthest back and go from there. So again, remember, it's oriented like this, so you want to have that ready to go as you're plugging it in. So it helps to move these and just tuck them a little bit out of the way so that they're not clogging us up while we get back there. So this is the first plug that we're going to plug in. It goes into the farthest back module. It's a little tight back there. All right. Our first one is in. Now we can do our second plug, which plugs in to the closest module. Got a click. And a click. Okay, so now these two plugs are going to attach to the blue plugs we removed from the modules earlier. So we'll plug in one, and we'll plug in number 2. And now we can just tuck those wires back up in there. And now we're ready to install our module. So to do that, Made this fairly easy. All we have to do is orient these like so and plug in until you hear a click. You want to make sure you hear clicks on each of these connectors going in. And now we'll attach the tape that's included, and we will mount this right there. It tucks in very nicely and it's secure and it's out of the way of everything else. So let's get that set up. Okay, now that that's taped in there, we're all set. That is a very good 3M adhesive, so it won't leave any marks and it will stay there as long as you leave it. Now that we have everything installed, let's verify that everything is working correctly before we put everything back together. First step to doing that is going to be turning on the car and using the remote that was included with the module. While standing at the back of the car, hold your hand over the exhaust pipes like so and toggle the valves open and closed, and you should feel a distinct difference with each mode. And do that on each side, and if you verify that that's working, you can put everything back together. I will show that process in a few. Alright, now I'll show you how to make sure that we've installed the exhaust controller properly. First thing you want to do is turn on the car, let it idle in park, and go around back and stick your hand in front of one of the exhausts and press the button on the remote. You should feel the exhaust gases do something very different. In my case, they switched from coming out of the left side of the exhaust to the right. It may be the opposite way for you on your first install. Press it again and now they've switched back. I can actually show you this happening with these glasses. See, they're fogging up there. I'll press the button and now look, the other side is not fogging up, but it will fog up on this side. Okay, so first step to putting all of this back together is our foam inserts. This is a step that is easy to forget. So it takes a little bit of finessing to get it in the right spot, but it's not too difficult. Okay, so this is the spot. All we have to do is do the opposite motion we did when we put it in. Just put some pressure backwards into the car and press downward, and it goes in without a struggle. Okay, next step is going to be putting our panels back in place. So this one goes over here, and this panel goes back over here. You want to hear 2 clicks when you're putting it in. So one, I think we heard 2 at once. And finally, our panel there. So now we are just replacing our clips. Remember, the clips are facing away from the center of the car, so this clip will go in like so, and this clip will go in like this, both facing away, furthest from the load floor. Now that we have all of our hooks back in place, now all we have to do is put our load floor back where we found it. We can replace pit. And there we go, good as new. Your exhaust controller is almost fully installed. Now we're going to set up our remote with our Homelink button, so we don't need this in the car every time we want to switch the exhaust valves. So to do that, we are going to hold buttons 1 and 3 until it turns green. That puts it into programming mode. Okay, we have green, so now we're going to hold the button we want to program and the button on the remote until that turns green, and now we are programmed, and you no longer need this remote, and you can use whichever button you programmed on your Homelink to control your exhaust valve controller. So remember, the settings for that are press once to toggle on or off, and hold for 2 seconds to let the car control the valves, as if the car were stock.